Hi guys, Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, welcoming you back to another edition of the EE Live Q&A right here on the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page. We'll wait for a few minutes as people start to jump on. Wow, it's I think day 5 of my foray into living life without my iPhone. I've posted a few little live updates on the Canadian Immigration Institute YouTube channel, but it's been an interesting experience. So trying to go without just that constant connection to everybody around has been a real interesting experience. There's been definitely some detractors, which makes it really tough for good and bad reasons. And so one of the things that I obviously that I realize is that I'm able to get a whole lot more done both at home and here at work without the text message continually buzzing or emails or people calling. So that's one positive. But the negative is that when I really need to get a hold of people, it's actually kind of tricky. Like, for example, tonight, I have an activity with our 16-year-old young men in our church, and I'm not exactly sure what we're doing tonight. And because I don't have my phone, I'm not on our group text. So I'm going to have to try and call and get one of the young men on the phone, which I think all of you know how well young people like to actually talk on the phone. I'm going to have to get my phone here in the office and actually try and call and see what our plan is for this evening. So, but aside from that, it has been actually really good for me to not have that constant connection and to be able to unplug and have the evenings to recharge. So it's been a pretty good experience. It means that I'm not able and not as accessible in the evenings because you guys are sending me stuff. When I'm getting ready to go to bed, sometimes it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Who am I kidding? Sometimes I'm responding to you guys at 1 a.m. and then having to get up at 5 the next morning, and it just is not healthy. And I think you guys can see some of the videos, my eyes are like bloodshot and I'm like functioning on no sleep, and I'm just not bringing my A game. I'm just kind of going through the motions. So thanks for your patience. After this, I'm going to jump on and I'm going to go through and respond to all of the Facebook messages and all of the comments and everything that I haven't been able to get to the last day or so. But hey, overall, it's been really, really good. And I know that when I get through this, I'm going to be much more responsible with how I use the phone. So that is kind of where I'm at with my life, just as a little update. For those of you, a bunch of people are starting to pile on now, and we've got a really good group of people that are now. And I can see that doing these live express entry Q&As is far better on the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page than in the private group. And one thing I want all of you guys to do is to tag all of your friends, everybody that you know on Facebook that would also like to join this live video that you think could benefit from it, because not everybody has it pop up in their timelines, unless they've liked the page, or who am I kidding? I don't really know how Facebook, all of this works, but I do know that if you tag someone, then sometimes they can also get notified and then they can come and join us live. So what I'm going to do here is I've got a couple little pop-up windows that I'm going to get rid of off of my screen. But I want you to, tag people, but then I also want you to post where you're listening from. And this is a very, very important record for me too, to see if I'm getting a lot of people from certain jurisdictions, certain places in the world, then that may cause me to rethink the time in which I'm doing these so that it better accommodates for the schedule of those people in the majority of that are actually in the geographic regions that form the majority of my listeners. So post in your comments below where you're listening from. If this is your first time checking out this thing, whether it's as a recording here on the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page or on YouTube, the Canadian Immigration Institute YouTube channel, I want to welcome you for the first time. And as I've indicated, and some of you may have missed, my name is Mark Holthe. I'm a Canadian immigration lawyer, an ex-immigration officer with Canadian Immigration. I worked on the border, and a former high school teacher. And so that's part of the reason why I love doing all of this, teaching you, is I'm just getting my teaching fix. And I moved for valid reasons from being a teacher to a lawyer to support my family and my extended family. But by doing this, I'm able to pull all three of those things into my professional life. I can be a lawyer, and not just a lawyer, but an immigration lawyer, which I really love. I can be, I can leverage my experience as an immigration officer, understanding kind of how immigration operates from the other perspective, which has really enhanced my ability to work for my clients, and this teaching, which really is what gives me the greatest joy. So that's why I created the Canadian Immigration Institute. That's why, if I jump here, I'll just share my screen quickly. That's why here, let's just pull this into a place where it's not interfering. If you go to the Canadian Immigration Institute, this is the new page, and I'm trying to get people more aware of it, where I'm going to be, this is really the best way to get in contact with me, to learn about what I do, to access some of the resources and products that I have available, my podcast, the guides, and for many of you, the one that applies the most is my Express Entry Complete Step-by-Step Guide to doing it yourself. And so this guide is available, and there's testimonials of past subscribers, and there's just a ton of information on why I created it, and ultimately you have the ability to purchase either on a monthly basis or lifetime access. And at the end of this video, I'm going to give you an access code that will give you 50% off of the lifetime access. All right, so that's where that is, and you can access it easily by going to the Canadian Immigration Institute and just typing that in, Canadian Immigration Institute, and it will take you right here. All right, and I guess I should also point out that I am now building out some of my guides that are designed for companies and HR managers and businesses who are looking to recruit foreign workers, and that may very well be one of you guys. So this labor market impact assessment, this guide for high wage positions, is actually one of the reasons why I started with this first, was because it's kind of exactly what you guys need when you're not ranking high enough to be able to immigrate directly to Canada on your human capital alone. And what I mean by human capital is your language ability, your education, and your age, as well as your work experience. And so this is why I created this, so that you guys could educate yourself. If there's employers that want to give you a job offer, it's not just a matter of getting a letter given to you, and therefore you get 50 extra comprehensive ranking system points, and it boosts you up to the point where you can get an ITA. No, the company actually has to apply for a formal labor market impact assessment to show there's no Canadian or permanent resident available to do the job before they can get approval to offer it to you, and either have you come right away and work and pursue permanent residence, or just to support your permanent residence as it is. So hopefully that helps a little bit with understanding how that works, and I will do other videos in the future to talk about this further. But that's why I created the Canadian Immigration Institute. So this, I'd encourage you guys to go check it out, subscribe to my mailing list, and then you'll get notifications about all kinds of stuff, more education material, more free advice and direction, and links back to the podcasts and things like that when there's new editions released. All right. Whew. Okay, well, let's shift back here and let's see where people are tuning in from. All right, and so one thing I want to remind everybody, don't start posting your questions just yet, because first we have to get through the people who sent them in via email right here. And you'll notice in the bottom of my screen right here, an email address, which is my legal assistant, Stephanie. And this little handy little statement right there, EE Live Q&A, must go in the subject line of your email if you'd like it to be considered for this episode, and basically for any future episode. And one thing I want to point out as well is if it's a specific question that only relates to you about your unique circumstances, then that will require a legal consultation. And I'm not able to devote time answering those for free, because that's what I do for a living. I'm an immigration lawyer. But interesting questions that are of benefit to all of the listeners within Express Entry, Stephanie screens those out and selects those ones to be used for the purposes of these EE Live Q&As. So if you want to have your question and you're watching this as a recording, you can just send an email to Stephanie, put EE Live Q&A in the subject line, and then your question could potentially be considered for a future episode. But those of you faithful people, and I see we have, wow, we've got about 66 at least I see right here, live people that have just tuned in. that are watching, you guys are going to be rewarded because those who are here are going to get their questions answered live. All right. So I think that's a pretty good start. Okay. So let's scroll down here. So hold off your questions till I let you know, and we'll see. All right. So Sana says, welcome back. Thank you, Sana. And Nod's there. See, Afifa, he just tagged someone. Good on you, Nods. Raul's from India. Welcome. Yuri, Warsaw, Poland. I just relocated from Kyiv, Ukraine 5 days ago. Very cool. Many years ago, probably about 10 years ago, my in-laws, my wife's parents, her mom and dad actually served a mission for our church. They were in Kyiv. They lived there for a year. And so in the Ukraine, and he was the area medical advisor who helped the missionaries that were serving there. So very cool. Aset is Kazakhstan, very cool. Shubhamita is West Bengal, India. Amrit's Punjab, India. Rahul is Gujarat, India. Awesome, you guys. I know what time it is there. It's like, well, here it's 12:15, so it's probably about 12:45 a.m. there. So you guys are super dedicated. Hamad's Pakistan, listening for the first time. Welcome. Excellent. All right. And then Monica's got a question, so we'll hold that one off, Monica. And so does Adil and Anil from Banff. Awesome. Anil's in Banff. Cool. Canadian. In Canada. Very cool. Okay. And then we'll skip through the other ones till we get here. We got a bunch of questions being posted, so hold off on those. Oh, look at that. Yuri is tagging just a ton of people. So, all right, let's see. I don't know what Yuri's doing. Zan says, good evening. Hi. Let's see. Okay. And Ralph, my favorite friend, is connecting once again. Marlon's back. Welcome, Marlon. Tahir says, call me. I can't call you Tahir. You can book a paid consultation. Yuri says, I know many Mormon missionaries in Kyiv. Cool. Awesome. And I think you know my two kids are out serving. My daughter's in Indianapolis, Indiana, and my son is down in Suriname in South America. So I always love when people treat those kids well. All right. Oh, Pam's from South Africa. Nawad's Pakistan. Hazmik is Armenia. Avneet, nice to see you too, Avneet. We've got Koi in the Philippines. Awesome. And we've got our H1Bers and our people in the U.S. Abjit is Connecticut. Awesome. Good job. Okay, Christine is Delhi. Oh, there we go. So thanks, guys, for sharing that with me. Whew, we got people all over the place, which is really cool. Really cool. Some places that we haven't had before. And welcome to you who are tuning in for the very first time. All right, let's jump in here. Islam is Dhaka. You bet. You bet. All right. So first question. This one comes from listener Muhammad. And he says, hi, Mark. So many people are trying to explore their own predictions and posts in the group that Express Entry is going to end in 2020 without giving any evidence. So my query is it true? If no, then what is the facts? Okay. And this is kind of like the highlight question for this video that I put in the title. Please do not believe anyone out there that are trying to tell you that Express Entry is going to end in 2020. And where is that coming from? Well, we are in the midst of a federal election in Canada. Our Liberal Party has been in power for 4 years, and now it's time for a new election, and they could get reelected. The Conservatives could get elected. It's really going to be down to one of those two. The other parties are not as significant players in the election. It's either going to be a Liberal government or a Conservative government. And so some people may believe that, oh, if the Conservatives get in, they're more anti-immigration. And that's not true. They are not. They tend to be more economic immigration than, say, a refugee or asylum. The Liberals tended to be more open and willing to bring in refugees in larger numbers. It's not that the Conservatives don't believe in our Canadian obligations to bring in refugees, but their focus tends to be on the economy. You know, we are, the Conservatives are all about driving the economy. And so what is Express Entry about? Express Entry is all about bringing in what Canada calls the best and brightest from the world, all over the world, to come immigrate and bring their skills, bring their human capital. In other words, we have financial capital in our banks, but we also have our human capital, our language abilities, our education, our work experience. Even age is a human capital, because if you're younger and you immigrate to Canada when you're 30, compared to when you're 50, you have 20 more years of working, paying taxes toward the Canadian government. And so you're more valuable if you're younger, right? So what I'm trying to say here is some people are thinking because of the election, well, what if the Conservatives get in and then they're going to shut down Express Entry? That is not going to happen. Express Entry is here to stay. It has been a system that's actually worked very well. They may make adjustments to the actual comprehensive ranking system. You know, they could potentially adjust the points that are awarded for certain factors. They always have the ability to do that. And in fact, the Liberals have done that since they've been in power. But Express Entry was created by the Conservative government. Well, I shouldn't say the Conservative, the civil servants created it. But the reality is it was created at the time in which the Conservatives were in power. So it's not the case of the Liberals being the ones that have spearheaded this Express Entry. So with all that being said, I want to clarify something very clearly. Anyone, if it's a consultant or any representative that is trying to tell you that it's coming to an end and you need to get your profile in as fast and pay them money to help you, kick them loose, give them a good royal boot, because all they're trying to do is to create this fear-mongering to get people to submit their applications right now when maybe they're not ready or otherwise, just to get money out of this fear that the program is closing. And we've had lots. I'm the vice chair of our Canadian Bar Association's immigration section. In December, I'll be heading to Ottawa again to have meetings with IRCC Immigration and the Canada Border Service Agency, ESDC, who manage the foreign worker program. And we have a lot of opportunities to talk about what's happening in the future, to talk about concerns we have as immigration lawyers across the country. And really what that means is the concerns of our clients. And so when we're talking about the impact of this election or what's coming in 2020, anyone that tells you that Express Entry is coming to an end is stupid and has no basis whatsoever for making that statement. Maybe that's a little harsh, but the reality is I have heard or seen nothing, no rumblings whatsoever that they would want to make a change and shift back to the old way it was. Because the old way meant that, and if you go, let's take a look here. The old way basically meant that anyone, and if we go to the rounds of invitations, that's the best place to go. If we go to the rounds of invitations here for Express Entry, and we take a look at, we look at these rounds, and then what I want to look at here is these stats. So what this means here is that as of August the 30th was, the last time they took a look at this or whatever, the last time they updated it, you can see in the queue, there are 119,042 people that have a profile submitted in the Express Entry pool. And what that means is, at least in the old days, it meant that every one of these individuals could potentially have their permanent resident application processed. So to get into the pool, you have to be eligible for one of the programs. And so in just this short period of time, not counting all the other people that have come in, landed their permanent residence, the people that are just in the pool pending, if Express Entry went to an end, all of these people would come in. And I can guarantee that in the range of 350 to 400 in particular, all of these people that have been sitting here forever and ever, the reason there isn't a lot is because initially people put their profile in and then after a year it got kicked out. So what I'm saying is right at this point in time, there's 119,000. Well, if immigration only brings in, say, 80 to 90,000 a year, and every year the people that are now believe they don't have a chance, which is the people from 300 to 400, even up to 420, everybody that has been out of the pool is going to get back in, and I shouldn't say get back in, they're going to submit applications because Express Entry is a system to manage the actual permanent resident programs in Canada, the Federal Skilled Worker Program, the Canadian Experience Class, and the Federal Skilled Trade Program. Without express entry, all of these people would be eligible and by law would have the ability to have their application processed. Well, before express entry, that was the case. So everybody that met the minimum entry criteria, guess what happened? They would have a right to have their application adjudicated. And what did that mean? It meant that at one point we were over 600,000 people in the backlog. And what did that mean? Well, in some countries, you could be waiting 6 or 7 years to get your permanent resident application processed. And the government knew that by that time, heck, people could have died by the time their application was processed. And it wasn't sustainable. So they created express entry so that they could then set up a system where they only invited a certain number of people, you can see right here, that they could actually process within 6 months. Now, 80% within 6 months. So it allowed them to continually pick the best of the best, right? So in this case, 463 was the score back on September the 4th. Anyone that ranked higher than 463 or higher as of August the 23rd, you can see the tiebreaker here, would be given an invitation to apply, and then 3,600 people were extended those invitations. Well, you can see if they open it up, we're sitting right now, and it's probably higher than this, at about 120,000 people. And understand, that's not counting. There could be how many people in this range up to 400? There could be 10 times as many people as are actually in the pool right now, okay? So understand that this is why they're not just going to throw express entry out. Could they change these things right here, the comprehensive ranking system criteria? Could they allocate different points right here to these different factors? Yeah, they could. Could they go down here, which are the real fine tuning that they do? Could they go to these additional points and make changes? And you guys know over the last while, you know, they've added 15 points for a brother or sister. They've added 15 or 30 points for anyone who speaks a certain level of French as well as English. You know, for studying in Canada, they've added these. They changed the arranged employment from 600 points, what it used to be for someone who had a labor market impact assessment or qualified through an employer-specific work permit. And they changed that to drop it to 200 for 00 NOx and 50 for 0A or B. And of course, 600 has always been from the beginning if you have a provincial nomination. So I think you guys can see now, they have the ability to make little tweaks, to lower the points, to adjust it based on what they feel are the needs of the country at that time. But to throw it out, well, that's my position. And I just don't think it's going to happen. And not a think, like I can't imagine in the world in 2020, they're just going to throw it out, okay? Anytime they make any changes, they will produce something that they post in the Canada Gazette. Regulatory changes, because those would also be needed if there was any significant change of like canceling express entry. Those things have to be posted and for comments before they become law, and none of that's out there. So short, well, that was a long response, but this is the flagship question of express entry today. It is not going to be canceled. So anyone who does, say, go watch Mark's his EE Live Q&A on Tuesday, September the 17th, and he'll explain to you why express entry is not going to be canceled. And it's interesting, I guess this topic was something that people wanted to watch because we just ballooned up to 120 people that are watching this live. So welcome to all of you guys. And I hope that explanation was useful to you. Those who jumped in late, you can always go back to the Canadian Immigration Institute YouTube channel and watch this because they are always posted there after we complete the live one. And I'll just show you right here. If you go to YouTube and you see if I've got my actual one here, I might have to re-sign in. I have to switch this up, sign out, and sign in again, and find this one. Bear with me. Oh, seriously. How did I get disconnected? This is so funny. That's not it. I can't even remember what my password is. That's what happens when you get so reliant. Okay, here we are. So the Canadian Immigration Institute, this YouTube channel, all of the videos right here are posted. And I also want to give a shout out to Ralph. So Ralph, who was tuning in here, this is his picture that he took. And you can see even better pictures when it's expanded on your video. But I'm actually asking the members of our group to, if they're in Canada, to take a picture, send it to me, and I'll consider it to be added as one of the banner images. Also, as you guys know, I'll just show you here, and I apologize for being distracted. I'll get back to what I was telling you before. With our Canadian Immigration Institute page right here, where this is being broadcast live, I want to also extend an appreciation to Saurabh Gupta, who sent this awesome picture near Vancouver, BC. And so those images from across the country, I'm going to be using those in going forward as the banner images on all of my social media channels. So if you've got a picture you want to share with me, just send it to my messenger, and then I will make sure you always put where it is and what where the picture was taken and what's a picture of. Okay. All right, so back to what I was saying here. Any of these videos will then appear right here where you can watch them, and you can subscribe to this to the YouTube channel, get notifications when the videos are posted. And you can see I'm going through my this is like day 5 here of my life with no iPhone, so I'll be posting a little update there. But all of my past EE Live Q&As are all here. And I've tried to really identify one specific question and then open it up to everyone else. So if this is your first time experiencing it, I've got a ton of stuff here, guys. Every week, it just keeps adding up and adding up and adding up. All right, awesome. Okay, so there you have it. That's kind of what's happening right now, and I just wanted to get those who are first-time watchers up to speed. But hopefully, you now understand why Express Entry is not going to be canceled. All right? Okay, woo. Let's go back to the questions here. So we'll get through a few. That was a long one, but good question, Mohammed, because it really was one I needed to talk about because I wanted to dispel all the craziness that's going on out there. Okay, Danish says, I regularly watch your videos, and I must say you're doing a great job by helping new immigrants to Canada. You're very welcome, Danish. I would really appreciate if you could please guide me as I'm facing some issues post-PPR in my Express Entry. I received my passport request on Monday, the 9th of September, and I have 30 days to submit my passport. I'm married and was blessed with a child in March. I have informed IRCC many times about this, but still the newborn has not been added, has been updated in my online portal as a dependent. I also informed them about newborn, passport request, but it seems they hardly respond to web forms and emails. New Delhi visa office. Okay. My wife and newborn are not accompanying me. Shall I still submit my passport for visa as I have just 30 days for submission? Please advise. Well, ultimately, no. You need to deal with that. You need to make sure that they understand. And I'll be honest, Danish, they should have taken that seriously. They should have dealt with that, especially if you notified them back in March. Like there's no reason why it shouldn't have been dealt with. And so, all I can say, your situation is a little bit unique here, but generally speaking for everyone, if you have a new family member, then that family member needs to be taken into account on your application, even if they're not accompanying. And what does that mean? Immigration medicals, passport, all these kinds of things that are critical components, especially for dependents. And I'm assuming with your non-accompanying spouse, that spouse also has done their medical and police certificates. So in your case, Danish, you do not want to go ahead and land without making sure that new child has been fully disclosed and examined by immigration, even though they're not accompanying you. If you want to book a consult, you can just go here. You can even search regular Stringham, but the link, it's just stringham.ca, immigration-mark-holthe, and that will take you right here, and I'll post this in the comments section for those who are watching it live. But this is where you can schedule a paid consult with me, and that's the best way for us to sit down and go through that. So Danish, in your situation, you might want to just connect with me, and we can go through everything in detail. Okay, good question. Let's jump back here. Okay, I'm going to get a quick drink. Okay, so this one is Diego. And Diego says, does work experience as a contractor working for the company but getting paid by a staffing company count for AOS? This is the Alberta Opportunity Stream. I understand it does, as long as it is 6 months under the same occupation knock on the last 18 months. Okay, so Diego, this one, my friend, is actually outside of Express Entry, and it relates specifically to a PNP. And so There are a lot of different different factors for every different province. They look at work experience differently, and so you and I, Diego, we would need to deal with this one offline. Once again, it would require a paid consult to go through everything because your situation is not straightforward. And usually, when we're supporting work experience in these in these circumstances, yeah, it's not easy to prove when you are a contractor because it's designed for people that are employed full time on a regular employment basis. All right. Okay. Nicola's got a little bit bigger one here, and we'll see if we can zip through this. She says, "Hi, I've recently been watching the live Q&A videos and found them extremely helpful. I'm planning on booking a consult with yourself very soon when I am in a better position to apply for Express Entry." Great, Nicola. I look forward to connecting with you. However, I have a specific question which I'm struggling. Okay, so specific, hopefully it's general, but specific but general for everybody. Struggling to find any information on, and I appreciate that if the answer to my question is more of a consultation, then I understand if you can't answer now for me. Nicola Rule, she gets it. Okay, well, let's see what we have here. On a side note, what is the wait time for booking a consultation? Okay, well, I can tell you that consults happen very, very quickly. And so if someone has a really urgent matter, I can often squeeze you in. But I traditionally book consults Monday morning, Tuesday, and Thursday I take for myself to get my client work done. Wednesday, Friday mornings, that's kind of the times that I set aside for consults, but I can always squeeze people in on emergency basis. Okay, so Nicola says, I'm currently moving into a job which requires me to remove one of the restrictions from my current open work permit so I can work in health-related services. So basically, she needs a medical. I will be applying for this via paper as indicated on the IRCC website, but I'm also wanting to apply for PR and looking at putting in an Express Entry profile within the next month. I wonder whether I would run into issues with applying for changes to my current visa, getting a new one, and then trying to apply for PR at the same time. Thank you so much. Okay, Nicola, this is no problem at all. If you're in Canada, Canada has the concept of dual intent. It is built into the immigration laws. And so you can have an intention of being in Canada and abiding by the temporary conditions on your work permit, as well as seeking to become a permanent resident one day. So there's no issues with that at all. There's no restrictions. Where it comes into play is if you're not in Canada. And then the officers can be really difficult. Now, I'm going to try to resist the temptation to say officers are jerks, because they're not jerks, but they can be very, very strict in how they interpret this dual intent. And especially if you're coming from a country where there's a high rate of overstays or things like that, then they can actually use the fact that you have an Express Entry pool, an application in the pool, to as one of the factors to refuse a study permit, a visitor visa, whatever it might be, temporary, even in some cases a work permit. Which I would fight and take to federal court and challenge that, but that's a possibility. So you have to understand that when people are applying for permanent residence outside of Canada, immigration, even though it's a double standard, treats them differently than someone who's already in Canada studying or working and is just changing their temporary status. Those people are the ones that are actually able to immigrate now. It's harder and harder to immigrate outside of Canada because the comprehensive ranking system score continues to rise and rise, which makes it more and more difficult to qualify on human capital alone. So those of you with Canadian work experience, Canadian study experience, that have a job offer from a Canadian company that is supported by an LMIA or an employer, named employer specific work permit, you are the ones that really are filling a lot of the positions when it comes to immigrating to Canada. So Nicola, no worries there, and I look forward to connecting with you. And in all honesty, Nicola, it's probably best that we connect sooner rather than later, because I might be able to give you some tips and strategies on making sure that your Canadian work experience works. And there's nothing worse than someone coming to me after they've already burned up their post-grad work permit and they've been working in a low-skill position and they didn't realize it, and now they have no pathway to permanent residence. So consults earlier on so we can strategize and plan when you still have time. Those are always better. Okay, Amina says here, hi Mark, quick question about NOC 5241. If you open this NOC, it lists separate duties and responsibilities for graphic designers and illustrators. The reference letter I have from my employer matches with the description under illustrators, but not with things under graphic designers. Does the list of duties and responsibilities on my reference letter need to match with both the graphic designers and the illustrators, or just one is fine? And this is actually really, really good. Okay, that's a really good question. She also says, I've noticed that there are several NOC codes similar to NOC 5241, which combine 2 or more professions under one NOC, and I think it is really confusing for many people. Thanks so much for all your the hard work you're doing. Much appreciated. Amina, this is a great question, and the answer is no. So let's show everybody what Amina is referring to here. So we always are going to go back to the NOC 2016. Oh, not 2106. Hey, it found it anyways. Great. And then we're going to punch in the 5241 for graphic designers here. We're going to pull it up, and I'll show you what we mean. So it's graphic designers and illustrators. They've lumped them into both. And what Amina wanted to know was, she has performed all of the duties, or at least a substantial number of the duties, for an illustrator, but not for a graphic designer. And she says, do you have to be able to do both, or just one is okay? And the answer is, just one is okay. These are actually 2 different positions. That's why they've separated out the duties. And so either of these are totally fine. You do not have to have both. And that's the same for any NOC that you run into. Okay, and some do have multiple positions and like differing duties listed, just like it is for graphic designers and illustrators. All right, great question. Thanks, Amina. Okay, and those of you who are posting all of your questions now, I'm just going to remind you to hold off, because I'm not going to be able to scroll back up. It's just too hard for me to look at all of the comments. So hold off on posting your comment. And then when I say, okay, now post your comment, then I'll have a line or a comment that's the baseline, and then I'll start working down from there, okay? So don't post it, wait, and then I'll tell you, and then you can post it after that time. All right, okay, so Anna says, I'm an Express Entry candidate waiting for my PR to be approved. I've recently seen some candidates who have received an additional document about military service, yes, and whether they were accepted or not. Knowing that I've never taken part in the military and never served in it, and I'm also not exempted, is the fact of not being exempted, having no exemption card, will cause any problems in getting my PR. In case I receive the same ADR, how can I prove that I've never served in the military? So this is a great question. Some countries, and what Anis is really talking about, is mandatory military service. And so this is a little bit of a tricky question to answer, I'll be honest. What is Canada looking for? Well, if you have served in the military, then they want you to provide often additional information to confirm that you weren't a part of an organization or a military that was committing war crimes or crimes against humanity or serious violations of human rights and things like that. And so they will often want confirmation to know where you served and which division within the military you were working under and what your role was and how high up in the military you were. And that's all for security screening and background checking. If the question here of Anis is, and I believe I understand what he's asking, is his country probably is mandatory that he's supposed to, but he didn't serve, and for whatever reason. And so in those circumstances, Canada doesn't, that it doesn't really care. If you never served, then you never served. But I understand, what do you do? How do you respond to it? Well, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. If you get a fairness letter, a procedural fairness letter that comes back from IRCC and they say, wait a minute, you need to provide military information because I know your country is mandatory military service, but you haven't listed anything. Well, then at that time you have to just explain the situation, explain what happened, why you didn't serve. And maybe I'm misinterpreting Anis, but in the case of individuals that have served in the military, well then yeah, you're going to provide that information to them and it will go forward. And so same thing, Anis, if that ever comes up and you're trying to figure out how to answer it, that is more of a case-by-case basis, and I'd recommend that you book a consult and we can get into that in more detail. All right, Harshi says, hi Mark, I started my full-time job in Canada December 23rd, 2018, and it's done December 2019. I'm in the Express Entry pool now, and I'll get my points for the 1-year work experience this November. I think I may have done this one last week. We'll see. I think I may have. We might be doing an overlap here. So 12 months. Okay. What can I do if I get an ITA before actually completing the 1 year? Yes. So this one, Harshi or Mendy in this case, I actually answered this one last week. But the short answer is Express Entry captures work history on a monthly basis, not on a daily basis. So if you started from January 31st, okay, you started work, and you finish December the 1st, we'll say, of the following year, well, January 31st to December 1st of 2019, let's say that's what you're working. Technically, you've worked only 10 months and 2 days, right? But Express Entry will treat that as 12 full months because they count on a monthly basis. Now, it's our understanding that, and there's no formal written policy, that they will give you the benefit of the doubt. And if you are given an ITA and you haven't yet accumulated that 12 months, that they will give you the benefit of the doubt. But for all of my clients, if I have flexibility and there's no absolute mandatory reason that I have to continue moving forward, I will decline that invitation to apply and wait until we have the full 1 year of work experience. Now, it happens more frequently when people already have foreign work experience that helps them to be eligible for the Express Entry pool. And then it's their Canadian work experience and getting that extra 35 points for that 1 year of Canadian work experience that causes the problems, because they weren't expecting to get the invitation to apply until they'd actually worked the full 12 months because it's their current job, right? But because of the way Express Entry calculates it, it kicks out an invitation to apply when maybe you don't necessarily qualify. So for my clients, I tell them to decline and we wait unless there's a reason not to. In other words, their comprehensive ranking system score is right at a level where it's unlikely they're ever going to get drawn again. Then we ride it out, we provide explanations, and by the time we submit the EAPR, it's going to be pretty close to that 1 year regardless. All right, good question, Harshi. Once again, was able to answer it twice. Okay, and I think this is probably, yeah, that's it for today. All right, you guys, so I see right here, Sasi says, "Hi Mark, you're awesome. How long it takes now to process an LMIA and PR?" I can tell you a labor market impact assessment. So now you guys can actually start posting after Sasi's comment right here. Okay, I'm gonna stop this. And then I will slowly work through all of them for you. So for Sasi, how long it takes now to process an LMIA and PR? Well, we know that permanent residents, 80% are processed within 6 months. And I don't tell my clients anything other than that. If it comes back sooner, fantastic. If it's longer than that, well, then we'll reach out to IRCC and try to figure out what's causing the delay. But for the vast majority of people, it's going to be under 6 months. Now, how long does it take to process an LMIA? That depends entirely. Most cases, when it's a dual purpose to support work permit and permanent residence, or just straight permanent residence, that type of an LMIA can take anywhere from, as much as 2 to 3 months to process after the company actually does the advertising and recruitment, which can take a month. So yeah, but the processing time can be 2, 3, even some cases 4 months to process that. So it takes quite a while. All right, Nod says, "Hello, Mark. I have 4 years of work experience with aviation, in the aviation industry. Completed my postgrad, also married. My husband also has done his postgrad, doing my ALITS class. Hopefully we'll seat an exam this November." Okay, so this is a perfect exam here, Nads. So she says, "Could you please let me know what will be my chances for Express Entry? What am I supposed to start with in this process? Well, I will need your consult." Okay, and that's exactly it, Nads. We'll need to do a consult. So this is these are the kinds of questions that don't work very well for this, because the other, let's see, what do we have? We have 92 people that are watching this live. They're not going to want to sit here for 10 minutes while I explain to you how you can qualify. And it wouldn't be fair to them. And it's actually not fair to me either, because that is what I do for a living. And as a lawyer, information is free. But legal advice, that's what I do. So for you, Nods, absolutely. Book a consult and we can go through everything. And in that 25 minutes that we have, please understand that it's 25 minutes because I'm actually spending 10 minutes before I even get on the call with you, the Skype call. And it's just like this. You're on the other side. This is exactly what you see when we have our Skype calls. I prepare for it. So when we have that 25 minutes, it's solid, useful, helpful information. All right. Okay. So yeah. So Nads, I look forward to connecting with you. Okay. Masood says, "Hi Mark. What if the hours are not mentioned by the employer in the reference letter?" That's bad, Mads. Masad. That is bad. You definitely need to have those hours listed in your employment letter or have some other way of proving them. So let's jump back to the source. We're going to go to the government's website, and I'm going to go to the lovely completeness check, website, and you can just search for it yourself if you want to. Applications for permanent residence subject to the express entry completeness check. And then in this case, I'm going to jump down to work experience right here. And this is absolutely something that every single person needs to address 100%. So reference letter, and it must include the following details: job title, duties and responsibilities. Let's close this, that's annoying. Job status, dates worked for the company, and then number of work hours per week. Why? That's because if I jump here, I wonder if I even have, probably not. I'm going to jump to the Federal Skilled Worker Program eligibility, and hours are critical because in order to prove skilled work experience, you must prove that you have worked full-time, 30 hours a week for 12 months to accumulate a total of 1,560 hours. Now, there's some other variations, but that's the baseline. The only way they can determine if you're actually working 30 hours a week is if you prove it. And how do you prove it? You prove it through your reference letter. So in your situation, 100%, Masood, you want to make sure that it's in there, or you have some other way of proving your actual hours worked. That's how they determine if you're full-time. All right, Yuri says, hi Mark, how's it going? Could you clarify this requirement regarding NOC 0124? It says the following, that marketing managers need a university degree. Okay, blah, blah, blah. It says all this stuff. What if I got a marketing manager role straight after college? Will CIC deduct a year or two to meet this requirement? Many thanks, Yuri. Okay, so what Yuri's asking here is, it relates, and we'll go back here to his actually we'll pull this up here, and we'll pull up Yuri's position, or the one he's using as an example. I'm going to get another drink. Okay, so what Yuri's focusing on here is his concern that his foreign work experience, and I'm assuming, Yuri, you're talking about foreign, because this doesn't apply when you're getting a work permit to come to Canada. But for the purposes of foreign work experience, what they're looking for here is that you have performed a substantial number of the main duties. And let's see if we can actually find this here. It should be listed here if I can find it on the website. So in order to actually qualify and be able to show that you've got the work experience for that NOC, you must show that while working, you perform the duties set out in the lead statement of the occupational description. And it includes, they say, all the essential duties and most of the main duties listed. Okay, so basically, the regulations that govern express entry in the Federal Skilled Worker Program indicate when it comes to, and let's actually, I'm jumping around here. Maybe I lost my page. There we are. So what that means is this is the lead statement. So you must perform all the activities in the lead statement, and then a substantial number of the main duties. And once again, just like that first question we had, you can see there's actually 4 different positions: advertising managers, marketing managers, public relations, e-business managers. And so you need to show that you've performed a substantial number of these main duties, okay? But nowhere does it say that you actually have to meet the employment requirements for the purposes of getting your foreign work experience accepted for express entry purposes. So in your question about meeting these things for advertising, marketing, no. Even if you're in school or just finished completing school and it says several years of experience are required, several years of experience are required, it's not a barrier for express entry. You just need to show that as a marketing manager that you have performed a substantial number of these main duties, okay? And of course, all of the activities in the lead statement. That's what we're getting at. All right, great question. Very good, I like that one. All right, good job, Yuri. Okay, Kishore says, hi Mark, I've been living in Canada for over 4 years now. Through my master's and post-grad work permit, I've been working remotely as a digital media specialist for someone in India over the last year or so. Can I use this work experience for my express entry profile as foreign work experience? Oh my goodness, Kishore. That's like a mind-blowing question. I don't know. I'll be honest, that's one that I'm going to have to go back and take a look at. And interestingly enough, I just had this conversation with a client this morning that I spent an hour and a half with, reviewing her profile because she's trying to claim self-employed work experience. And the work experience right now that she's claiming, she's on her post-grad, and it's freelance work as a translator outside of Canada. So in your situation, Kishore, this is something that I need to look into. I don't see any restrictions claiming that work experience. That's my position right now. So you can start with that. But I'm going to go through, and I think that's something that I need to definitely dive into. But while you're going to school, you can't count the work experience obviously towards the Canadian Experience class because it's prohibited. You can't count work experience gained while you're on a study permit in Canada or self-employed work experience. So those are prohibited with the Canadian Experience class. But that work experience is not prohibited when you're counting foreign work experience. So it's always a challenge when you're working remote. Is that work experience Canadian work experience or is it foreign work experience? And that's where the rubber hits the road. That's where I need to understand a little bit more, Kishore, about your situation, how it's structured, in order to really give you an actual legal opinion. Because right now, I want everybody to basically realize that this is Mark's opinion, which maybe I shouldn't say that, because then that's technically, I'm a lawyer, that's a legal opinion, and then I'd really be getting into issues. So the short answer, Kishore, is I don't know. Don't rely anyone on what I'm saying right now. This is one of those ones where someone finally stumped me, and I'm going to need to take a look at it. Personally, the preponderance of my own experience and understanding would suggest that there should be no reason why you can't claim that work experience because it is based outside of Canada, but it really comes down to that distinction. Good question. All right, I'm going to make a note right here for Kishore. Kishore freelance, we'll call it, outside while in Canada. Woo, good question. Okay, next one is Preji, and he says, hello, Mark. While submitting my EAPR, I marked the statutory question regarding any previous rejection of a visa with a yes. Okay, good. That is a good thing. I was waiting for you to say no. Then I was going to start to get a little nervous. At the time of my EAPR submission, I had not been provided with a reason for rejection, nor with a refusal letter from the U.S. Embassy. So I stated no reason for the refusal of my U.S. tourist visa application was provided in my PR application. Recently, I received an email from the U.S. Embassy mentioning the reason for my rejection. So do I need to send this document to CIC? If you want, Preji, you can. There's no harm in updating it and saying, now I have my reason. But at the time in which you submitted your EAPR, if you truly didn't know the reason, then you are 110% correct in answering the way you did. So if you feel like you want to upload it to a case-specific inquiry to the IRCC web form, then you can do that. And just for those who are wondering, what does that mean? What is this case-specific inquiry everybody's talking about? It's the IRC web form, essentially. And this is where you can upload information related to an application that has already been submitted, that you have a file number for, and that you can track. And so obviously with Express Entry, you've got the file number, you know instantly when it was submitted. So you just choose your program, so permanent residence applied online, and you choose what it is, Express Entry, and then you go through, you fill this in, and you even have the ability to add documents after. See, when you click next, you'll have the opportunity to add the documents. So for those who are wondering how to do that, I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to post it in the comment section. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, if you go to the Canadian Immigration Institute YouTube page, you can find these links in the comment section, but I'm probably not going to put them in the notes section of YouTube because I just don't have time. There's just too much going on. All right, and it's hard enough for me to make time to do this as it is. Okay, so good question. All right. Okay, Mahesh says, hi Mark, hope you're doing well. Mahesh from India. My question is about PR card validity. I have soft landed a couple of weeks ago. Congratulations, that's awesome. And I've returned home to my country immediately. Now, while I'm awaiting my PR card, I want to know how many years I can stay in my home country before moving finally into Canada. Now, I don't know where the link on the immigration website is for this, but understand, in order to maintain your permanent resident status in Canada, you must show that you have been physically present in Canada for at least 2 years in every 5-year period. And so based on your situation, if you've soft landed and you've gone home, well, how many years can you stay outside of Canada before you're in danger of losing your permanent residence because of failing to meet your residency obligations? Well, I guess technically, if you're counting it right down to the very, very day, you could be outside of Canada 1 day less, 3 years. So 2 years, 364 days or whatever, and then come back to Canada and stay in Canada for 2 years. And in that 5-year period, you will have met your residency obligations. So there's a lot of dynamics to it. Obviously, you spent some days in Canada before you went back, a couple of weeks, 14 days. Well, then you can stay out 2 years and, 14 or 15 days less, 3 years essentially. All right, good question. Okay. Thoda says, hi Mark, what is a Schedule A form, IMM 5669? That is the form that they use for many other permanent resident application programs that are not online like Express Entry. So it is your background information form. It's the information where they collect about your background, what you've done. Just like in your own, your Express Entry, it's actually the profile section collects some information, but really what the 5669 covers is the information that's added once you get your ITA and you're completing your electronic application for permanent residence. So background declaration is your address history, where you've lived, your personal history, what you've done over the last 10 years, your travel history. Although travel history actually isn't on the IMM 5669. It's often a separate form that embassies will request. But that's what it is. So it's the background declaration that is used for many of the paper applications. And where it comes in Express Entry is if you've answered yes to having maybe a past criminality, or you've answered yes to one of these statutory information questions. And then IRCC asks you to provide more and further information. Sometimes they'll have you actually complete a 5669. All right, good question. Okay, Syed says, I have a passport and national ID card. Can I mention both passport and national ID card details while filling a contact details section in the APR, as in a bank letter, marriage, PCC? My national identification card number is mentioned. If you want to, you can totally include it. There's no harm in doing it. You're going to be landing based on your passport and the validity of your passport, but it does ask if you have an ID card, and if you want to, if you indicate that you have an ID card, then often it will ask you to submit that within your personal document checklist, but your passport drives the ship. Okay. Jasdeep says, Mark, good to see you. My ONP status changed to decision in progress on the 16th. All thanks to you for your guidance. Hey, Jasdeep, that's awesome. You are the most comprehensive client I think I've had with the options available to you. Very cool. Just keep me informed. We had an awesome consult, and I'm really, really excited for you. Very cool. Thanks for sharing. Okay, Ogu says, hi Mark, thanks for your constant help. Please, I have a huge sum of money sent to my bank account twice by my mother for the purposes of Canadian PR. I plan to put it in a treasury bill. Do I still need to get a gift deed, 6 months of bank statements, and bank reference? Okay, remember, the requirements, the minimum requirements aren't that you provide 6 months of bank statements. So if we go back to the completeness check and I go for funds here, we'll change this, and we go to proof of funds, you'll see here that what they're asking for is just a letter, official letter from the financial institution that lists all your current bank and investment accounts, as well as outstanding debts, credit cards, debts, and loans. People are constantly not putting credit card debts and loans in there. That's not following the instructions. And I personally think that although it would be hard to justify it as misrep, I think you're really not following the instructions that IRC asks you to do. So if you've got some consultant or someone overseas saying that you don't need to include it, just tell them to take a hike, because I include everything. I don't take any chances. So the letter, printed on letterhead, contact information for you and the bank. It needs to include the account numbers, the date each account was opened, and the current balance of each account, as well as, and this is where people get confused about the 6 months bank statements, as well as the average balance for the past 6 months. Why? Because they want to see where the money came from. Did it come from your employment earnings, or did it come from someone else? So even if it's over 6 months, if you got those big funds dumped into your account from a parent, well, I always get a gift deed, even if it's over 6 months. I don't care. I want to be very, very comprehensive in what I do. And there's many people out there that will say, oh, Mark, whatever, you don't need to do that. I've got 4 friends, or I'm a consultant and I do it routinely for my clients, and I don't waste time with that. Fine. Do whatever you feel comfortable with. But I've experienced express entry enough. I've seen the heartache of people who've had their Canadian immigration dreams dashed because of a simple little mistake, or even the discretion of an officer to choose not to accept something that maybe 9 out of 10 other officers would have accepted. So for me, I don't take chances. I don't. And is express entry, are my applications full and completely, chock full of other evidence? Yeah. But the reality is my clients don't get refused because we failed to include something. All right? All right. So there you go. So in your situation, I'd include it. Okay. Okay, Thoda also says, another question, can we work in both the US and Canada simultaneously paying taxes? Canada doesn't care what you do. As long as you've got a work permit in Canada, if you're physically present in Canada and you're working for a Canadian employer, they don't care what you do in other countries. Aditya says, I was a student in Canada from 2008 to 2012, and I overstayed by about 3 months. Now I'm in the EE pool with my wife as the principal applicant. Will there be any issues with our application if we explain the circumstances in the LOE? No, there should not be, because overstay, when you disclose that, that's what your obligation is to disclose. Failing to abide by the temporary conditions does not prohibit you from immigrating unless there was some formal removal process, deportation order, something like that would require or bar you from being able to come to Canada. So a mere overstay, that is something that you would 100% want to disclose, but it should not impact on your permanent resident application unless there were some other issues that you had with immigration that created it, that actually created a history and a record of you having to be removed or something like that, which I don't think is the case, but good question. Okay. Masood also says, does it work if I receive a gift deed from a distant relative? If yes, how do I prove the relationship? Well, when you say distant relative, I don't know what you mean. So the way I treat it is a friend, and if they're so far distant that they're a distant relative so far back that they're just a friend or a friend of the family, or a cousin, which I hear all the time, which really they're not a cousin, they're just like a family friend. Well, friends don't give money. Friends loan money. Family gives money. So if I have a client who has a friend that's just giving them $20,000, even an officer, if I would put my immigration officer hat back on, I can tell you that it would be really hard for me to accept that as being legit. It really would be. And an officer would question it as well. But at the end of the day, it's up to that officer's discretion. And parents, no problem. Gift deeds work 100% all the time. Distant relative, well, I don't know how distant. Cousin, uncle, you just need to make sure that everything is 100% legitimate and legal. And if it's a legal binding gift and it's deeded, sworn and confirmed that it's an irrevocable gift, not a loan, then it's going to be hard for an officer to just toss that out, given that actual legal document that forms a part of your application. But they have discretion. They have discretion. And even if an officer makes a decision that you don't agree with and you think is wrong and it's unreasonable, or they made an error in fact or law, then the process is painful and cumbersome. It's a leave to appeal to federal court to judicially review that decision of the officer. And you don't want to go down that path, trust me. Only if you absolutely have to. Okay, Marlon says, hi Mark, my question is, I'm on a work permit in implied status. Is MSP still available? I don't know what you're asking, Marlon. I don't know what MSP stands for. I should know that code, but I don't. Okay, so maybe ask that one again and I'll try and connect a little bit later. Okay, Ahmad says, hi Mark, with regards to foreign education, excuse me, in EAPR, do we need to insert the education for which we obtained an ECA only, or all educational credentials? Example, I have an ECA for my master's degree. Do I need to add in my BCS details as well? So whenever I have clients that are in the process of getting their ECAs, then I will always tell them, just get the bachelor's and the master's, get it done, both of them. And then it's complete, comprehensive. An officer can see how you got to your master's through your bachelor's. But one sure way of dealing with it, Ahmad, because you already have your ECA, is you only need to list your master's in your education section, and that's supported by the ECA. And then you make darn sure in your personal history that you very clearly list all of your past education, everything within that 10-year period they're asking you to include. And in all honesty, if it was a long time ago, I would almost still put it in your personal history, the bachelor's, even though it's outside of that 10-year window, just to show an officer that, look, I didn't list it in the study permit section or study history section just because I didn't bother with an ECA. The master's was sufficient. And so, and you may even want to include a letter of explanation, because those matter. Like just today, I was going through the ATIP results, the Global Case Management System notes for a client, and an officer made reference that the client didn't provide a letter of explanation to explain the inconsistency in their application or why they answered a question the way they did. And when an officer is confused and has that concern, then guess what's going to happen? They're going to make whatever decision they want to make, and based on the information before them. And if it's not sufficient, then it's not sufficient. Your application gets returned. All right. Okay, Japheth says, hi Mark, is it true that IRC accepts financial gift for a proof of funds only from biological parents? Oh, good question. I just answered that one. So we'll keep going with that one. So the answer is no, they will accept it from other people. Obviously, even an accompanying spouse and their parents are not you as the principal applicant. It's not your biological parents. So Japheth, whoever's telling you that is out to lunch. It's, could you take that position as an immigration representative, a consultant or a lawyer, and say, I'm not representing any clients unless the gift deeds are only from biological parents? Well, sure, it's a pretty safe practice. You'd never have any officers questioning the legitimacy of it, but that's not the case for everybody. So just understand, friends, they loan money. Family, they have a greater disposition to actually give out of love and affection, irrevocably. All right. Sashin says, hi Mark, a friend of mine from India completed graduation in IT in 2010, post-grad business 2012. He's planning to study in Canada. Oh, this is my favorite. Here we go. The consultants here say you can't get a study permit if you have a gap of more than 5 years. Okay, so this isn't an express entry question, but I'll still answer it. My question is it possible for him to get a study permit? Okay. And what's the best way to explain this gap to get a study permit positively? He has been working during this gap, just not in the field of study. Okay, well, I can tell you, Sashin, that although the consultants all there say you can't, it's not 100% prohibited that every person who applies for a study permit that has a gap in study is going to get their application refused. Now, what are the factors they look at? And this is something that I'm building into my my study permit course, which should be launching pretty soon. The reality is it more difficult to get it approved? Yes. Is it such that the vast majority of Indian nationals applying in these circumstances get their study permits refused? Well, maybe. It's possible. There's probably a greater likelihood that the study permit could get refused if the person is older, if the education they're seeking to do in Canada isn't in line with their past education, if there isn't a very good education plan that shows how this Canadian education is going to create further and better job opportunities back in their country, and there's a reason to return, that there are job offers waiting following completion of these studies. All of those things play a role. And it always irritates me when consultants say, oh, you've got a gap of 5 years, therefore it's impossible. Well, why are they doing that? Because they're freaking money-grubbing consultants. They don't want to do anything that requires a little bit of effort or that would require more work. They just want to do the gravy stuff that isn't even difficult, which really you shouldn't even bother hiring them to do because you can do it yourself. But that's why, because they're just lazy. They refuse to actually work on your behalf. They want to only do the ones that are 100% slam dunk guaranteed, and they don't want to do any other work. They just want to do whatever will make them the most money as fast as possible. And that's what it comes down to. So anyone that's saying those kinds of things, that it's not possible to do something, and there's these blanket absolute statements, just kick them loose. Don't trust what they're saying. Now, is there a chance that the likelihood of getting the approval is low? Yeah, that's possible. And is it good advice to tell someone not to waste thousands and thousands of dollars hiring a representative for an application that's has a very remote chance of getting approved, yeah, that's prudent, that's good. But at the end of the day, just saying, oh no, you can't because you've got a 5-year gap, that's not the case at all. All right, and because it depends on country, it depends on a whole bunch of factors, even yourself. All right, so we're going to end here with Sassy's comment here. And then I want to apologize for all the other people that I'm not getting to. We've been going about an hour and 10 minutes, so I need to close this one up and get back to my day job here. Okay, so Sassy says, I have 2.6 years of Canadian experience under a work permit. Okay, great. When applied for PR, they misinterpreted the papers and considered experience as just 1 year and 10 months, whereas we have education, job experience, and in-laws having citizenship there. Can we file a case on this? Sassy, this is one where you would need to book a consult because I'm not exactly sure where or why they would have reduced the Canadian experience that you would have been eligible for. And so I highly recommend that you just book a consult. We can go through all of that in detail. All right, so this is the end of the EE Live Q&A today. We had a fabulous, amazing turnout with all of you guys. And as I indicated in the beginning, for those who tuned in, those of you who have been following me for a long time and watched these have had the benefit of me sharing this with you. But if I can find the page, I think it's right here, yes. Those of you who are looking for just a little bit of guidance, help, instruction on what you need to do, even whether you qualify, the best thing in the world that I created for all of you is my Express Entry Complete Step-by-Step Guide to Doing It Yourself. So right here, you can access it on my Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page. And I'm going to copy it and I'm going to post it in the comment section. And those of you who are watching on YouTube or watching this as a recording, all you need to do is type in CanadianImmigrationInstitute.com. That's INSTITUTE.com, and it will take you here, okay? Well, it'll take you to the main page right here, and then all you have to do is click on Individual Guides, and that will take you to the Express Entry Complete Step-by-Step Guide to Doing It Yourself, Purchase Guide, and for you faithful listeners that are watching right now, I will give you lifetime access to this. I'm going to give you a code, and the code is EEDIY50. And if you type that in and you apply it, it will remove $248.50 off for a total of lifetime access to this at only $248.50 US. And it's lifetime. So you may not be in a position to qualify now, but you can take advantage of access and getting your subscription to the guide that doesn't expire. All right. I also want to, as always, express appreciation to all of you who are members of the Express Entry Law Private Facebook group. I know how much you guys help one another. I am so grateful for the moderators that are a part of that, who keep all of the spam and the garbage out of it so it's a safe place to share information, to share your experiences, to share your thoughts. I was looking just the other day, and those of you, I'm going to just kind of ramble on here. There's nothing really more substantive I'm going to be covering, so if you want to drop off, you can do it. If you're curious about, what I'm talking about here with Express Entry and things, you can keep watching. But basically, I was going through here and I was looking at the analytics. So I was looking at the group insights, okay? And I was looking at the engagement, and so more engagement details here. And so you can see here in the last 28 days, there has been 8.7 thousand, so 8,700 comments in the last 28 days. It is physically, and I better share my screen with you guys so that you can actually see this, okay? So you can see 8,700 comments in the last 28 days alone. It is physically impossible for me to answer all these questions. And even then, my display, I don't see like 95% of the questions that you guys ask. And I realized very quickly that it was not very efficient for me to go in and answer questions in a way that would help as many people as possible. So you can look here and you can see the analytics, okay? Look at this, active members, and this here. So you can see August through to September, you can see how many active members. So today, it's just the beginning of the day, and most people, once it gets later in the day, that's when it picks up. But 13,000 people right now are active in the Express Entry Law private Facebook group. September the 12th, there were 30,000 active members. So understand that because of that, I realized that it wasn't efficient for me with my time to just go on and answer people's questions within the Express Entry Law private Facebook group. And it was for that reason that I created the EE Live Q&A. It was for that reason that I created the Express Entry Complete Step-by-Step Guide to Doing It Yourself. And that's why I market that course, is to allow my knowledge and my information and my time, which is so precious, trying to balance work, trying to balance family, trying to balance my obligations with my church and my faith, trying to find balance was impossible because I was spending all of my time answering the individual questions that people were posting in the group. And even then when I answered them, maybe only that person or a few other people would even see the response. So I had to find a way to amplify, to really take advantage of my answer so that I could benefit as many people as possible, and really be super efficient with my time. And this was the best solution that I could figure out, was to do these live Q&As. And if people really had questions that they wanted to answer, they could come on live, they could send an email question in, and those who had specific questions that only related to them and their own unique circumstances, well, then those people needed to book a paid consultation to actually have one-on-one time from me. And so that's why I do everything that I do. And there's no doubt, that there's more that I could possibly be doing, but I had to draw a line. I had to find a way to make sure that I was still being the best husband and father I could be to my children, that I was the best youth leader in my church, and most importantly, that I was the best lawyer to my paying clients. So with all of that going on, I still found that this here, doing these live Q&As, and I still jump on every once in a while with an Express Entry Law and answer questions, but it's really important for me that I have balance, because then if you're spread too thin, then you're just not good at anything, right? And I think all of you know that. So I won't ask for forgiveness for not being on there, because there's a reason that I'm not on there as much as I am. But I created it in a way for you guys to share your information, to learn from these videos, and then to help one another. And like I said, thanks so much to my moderators. And I just want to take a few minutes here to give a shout out to my moderators. So let's see if I can find them here. Admins and moderators. So shout out to, so Brian is on that list. Igor, and we're just waiting for Igor's permanent residence any day now. Yadwinder, we have Priyanka, Ojo, Jaspreet, Hyan, Akish, Raju, Udit, James Caesar, Mauricia Carr. These are the moderators, and I want to shout out to them, and just they're doing this just out of the goodness of their hearts. And they're just trying to make things better. And I think it's time to do another shuffle of my moderators and to give some other people an opportunity. And I know that some of my moderators have moved on as well and are not as active. So I'll post a link in the Express Entry Law private Facebook group for new moderators. And I'd love to have you to join the team, essentially. And but other than that, I just want to, as always, express appreciation for all that I have. Appreciation for all of you to have the privilege of doing this, something that I love, and just to thank you all for being so collegial, just so supportive of one another. And that's what this is all about, right? We're all in this together. So this is Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, signing off and saying I'll see you guys next week right here, same place, Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page at noon Mountain Standard Time. And if you have a question that you want answered but you're not going to be able to attend live, remember right here, Stephanie at stringham.ca, and EE Live Q&A in the subject line will get you there. If you want to book a paid consultation with me, all you have to do is to go to my firm website, which is stringham.ca. And if I share my screen right here with all of you once again, it's just Stringham, STRINGAM.ca /immigration dash or a hyphen Mark dash Holthe, and that will take you here, and then you can fill in the information, and I'd love to connect with you. All right, this is Canadian immigration lawyer, once again, Mark Holthe, signing off, wishing you guys all the best as you navigate this crazy world that we call Express Entry. See you later.